and welcome to Kiki Crochet. In this video tutorial, we're going to learn how to crochet step by step the Textures and Granny's cowl. The total measurements for my cowl are 122 centimeters long and 35 centimeters wide, which are 49 inches long and 14 inches wide. Now, I'm going to use, the yarn that I'm using is Signet Chunky, which we're going to see in a second, and I used a total of 4 skeins. Our cowl has a roll which is a multiple of 12, okay? So just in case you want to crochet with a thinner yarn and a smaller crochet hook, or a thicker yarn and a bigger crochet hook, you're going to need to adjust your stitches. If you crochet with a thinner yarn, you're going to need to crochet more chains than I did. If you're going to crochet with a bigger yarn, with a thicker yarn and a bigger crochet hook, you're going to need less chains than I did. But you need to have a multiple of 12. This way the basket weave in the beginning here comes out right, as well as the grind squares in the center. So now let's see the material we're going to use and how to start. The yarn we're going to use is Signet Chunky, which is 100% acrylic, and each skein has about 156 meters, and we're using a total of 4 skeins for our project. I'm going to use 2 large buttons in the end, and I'm going to crochet with a 6mm crochet hook. Now, okay, so let's start crocheting our sample. Now, the rule for this stitch is multiples of 12. So if you crochet with a thinner yarn and a smaller crochet hook, or a thicker yarn and a bigger crochet hook than I'm using, you will need to adjust your stitches. For this yarn and for the 6mm crochet hook that I'm using, I'm going to need a total of 156 chains for the cowl. My sample has 24. The cowl will start with 156 chains. For my sample, the 24 chains will give me 22 double crochet in row 1. For my cowl, the 156 chains will give me 154 double crochet. Let's start. So yarn over once, and I'm going to skip the first 3 chains, and I'm going to put my hook in the 4th one, and I'm going to work 1 double crochet. Having done this, the first 3 chains that I skipped are my first double crochet for the row, and the double crochet that I worked in the 4th chain is my 2nd double crochet. So keep working. Next chain, 3, next one, 4, next one, 5, and keep crocheting up until the end for a total of 22 stitches. For the big project, you're going to have 154 double crochet. So as I'm going through the rows, I'm going to be mentioning the stitches that we would have if I was working my big project now, okay? So up until the end of the row, you will have 154 double crochet. I've completed row 1 with 154 double crochet. Now we're going to start row number 2. So I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to turn my row. Now starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet, and the chain 2 that I just worked to start my row with does not count as a stitch for this row, okay? Now, starting from the next stitch, I'm going to work 1 front post, 1 back post, 1 front post, 1 back post, up until the end. So the next stitch, this one right over here, I'm going to work 1 front post, double crochet around it. So I'm going to put my hook from the front to the back on the right side of the stitch, and take it out to the front again from the left side, so I'm pulling outwards my double crochet. Take the yarn, pull it under the stitch, and now have 3 loops. Work your double crochet. Okay, the next stitch is going to be a back post double crochet. So put your hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch, and take your hook out to the left side, okay, on the back from the left side of the stitch. So we're pulling backwards the stitch. Take the yarn, pull it under the stitch, and work your double crochet. The next stitch is going to be a front post double crochet. So again, put your hook from the front to the back on the right, out to the front again from the left, and work your front post double crochet. Next stitch is going to be a back post double crochet. So put your hook from the back to the front on the right side, take it out to the back again from the left side, and work your back post double crochet. So this is how my work looks like at this point. Keep working one front post, one back post, one front post, one back post. The last stitch in which you're going to crochet around is going to be this one, the second from the end. Okay, this stitch right over here is going to be a back post double crochet, and the very last stitch of my row is going to be those 3 chains counting from the bottom to the top. Put your hook in the peak over here, and you're going to work 1 half double crochet to finish the row with a total of 154 stitches. I've completed row 2 with 154 stitches. Okay, the second before the last stitch, as I mentioned, was a back post, and my last stitch of the row is 1 half double crochet on top of the last stitch. Now we're going to start row number 3, and I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to turn my work. Now in this row, the 2 chains do count as a stitch, and they are my first double crochet. Now usually when we start a row of double crochet, we usually chain 3, but in order to avoid having a big gap in the beginning of my row, I'm just chaining 2. And because the 2 chains are my first stitch of the row, I will not start crocheting from the first one. Because I have the 2 chains, I'm going to start crocheting from the second stitch, and I'm going to start counting from 2. So 2, next stitch, 3, next one, 4, and keep crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch across up until the end, where the last stitch is right here, your half double crochet. Do not crochet on those 2 chains, because we said in the beginning of the previous row that they do not count as a stitch. The last stitch of the row is your half double crochet, and you're going to have a total of 154 stitches. I have completed row 3 with 154 stitches. Now we're going to start row number 4 by chaining 2, and I'm going to turn my work. Now from here on, I'm going to have a good side and a wrong side. This here is going to be my wrong side now, because I am going to start working, I'm going to work all front post double crochet in this row. So in the good side, I'm going to have like an outline of the stitches over here, like a nice thick line in the front where you're going to see the end of the row. So starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work with 1 half double crochet. So in this row, the 2 chains do not count as a stitch. I'm going to start with 1 half double crochet in the first stitch, and in the center I'm going to have a total 152 front post double crochet. So starting from the next stitch, I'm going to work a front post double crochet, front post double crochet around the next stitch, a front post double crochet around the next stitch. Okay, so far I have 4 stitches. The first stitch is my half double crochet. I have 3 front post double crochet, so keep working up until you have right here in the second before the last stitch is going to be your last front post double crochet. So in the center, you can have a total of 152 front post double crochet, and in the last stitch of the row, which is those 2 chains counting from the bottom to the top, right here in the peak of the second chain, you're going to work the last stitch of the row, which is going to be 1 half double crochet. So 1 half double crochet to start with, 152 front post double crochet in the center, and 1 half double crochet to end the row with. We have again 154 stitches. I have completed row 4 with 154 stitches. Now we're going to start row number 5. So chain 2 and turn your work. Now in this row the 2 chains do count as a stitch, so I'm not going to start from the first stitch but from the second, and I'm going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch across. So 2, next stitch, 3, and keep crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch across for a total of 154 double crochet, and your last stitch is going to fall on top of the half double crochet. I've completed row 5 with 154 stitches. Now we're going to start row number 6, and we're going to start creating the basket weave. So chain 2 and turn your work. And because we're going to work front posts and back posts, we're going to start the row with 1 half double crochet, so the chain 2 does not count as a stitch. Okay, so start with 1 half double crochet in the first stitch. So now the next 2 stitches are going to be 1 front post double crochet around the next 2 stitches. Okay, so first stitch, front post double crochet, second stitch, front post double crochet. Around the next 2 stitches I'm going to work a back post double crochet. So first stitch, back post double crochet, second stitch, back post double crochet. Now this is how my work is going to look like, to front post to back post. Now keep working 1 front post around the next 2 stitches. Okay, so first stitch, a front post, second stitch, front post double crochet, and again around the next 2 stitches I'm going to work a back post double crochet. So 1 back post, 2 back post double crochet. Okay, so continue working to front post to back post and so on. The last 2 stitches in which you're going to work around are going to be a back post double crochet around the last 2 stitches over here, and in the last stitch of the row, which is the 2 chains, counting from the bottom to the top right over here, we're going to work 1 half double crochet to finish the row with, for a total of 154 stitches again. I have completed row 6, and now we're going to start row 7 by chaining 2, and I'm going to turn my work. Now again we're going to keep working our front posts and our back posts, but now we're going to change the direction of the stitches. Now if you recall, row 5 was a row of 1 double crochet in every stitch. Row 6 was a row of front posts and back posts. What I want to say is that we only worked 1 row working 2 front posts and 2 back posts, but now that I'm going to change the direction of the stitches, I'm going to need 2 rows to get the correct length of the stitches. So I'm just mentioning for you to understand that this is not wrong. I only worked 1 row with front posts and back posts. Now I'm going to need 2 rows, because the first row is going to give me the change of the direction of the stitches, and the second row is going to help me to get the correct height. Once I finish working the next 2 rows, I'm going to explain again for you to understand how the pattern should look like. Okay, so starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet, and now I want to change the direction of the stitches to work the basket weave. So since my first 2 stitches are front posts, now I want to make them back posts. So I'm going to put my hook from the back to the front on the right side of the stitch, to the back again on the left side, and I'm going to work a back post double crochet. Around the next stitch I'm going to work a back post double crochet again. Okay, now the next 2 stitches are back posts. In this row I want to make them front posts. So open up the stitches because the back posts are not that visible, and put your hook from the front to the back on the right side, to the front again on the left side, and work a front post double crochet. The next stitch, again we want to work a front post double crochet around it. So keep working 2 back posts, to front post to back post to front post, where the last 2 stitches of the row are going to be to front post double crochet, and in the end of the row again I'm going to work 1 half double crochet to finish the row with, and I'm going to have a total of 154 stitches. I have completed row 7. Now we're going to start row 8 by chaining 2 and turn your work. Starting from the first stitch, we're going to work 1 half double crochet, and again I want to keep the same direction of my stitches. So the first 2 stitches are to back post double crochet, so I'm going to keep working back post double crochet around them. So one back post around the first one back post around the second one. Okay, now the next 2 stitches are front post, so I want to keep working front post double crochet around them. So 1 front post and my second front post double crochet. So keep working to back post to front post to back post to front post up until you finish the row with 2 front post double crochet, and in the last stitch of the row you're going to work 1 half double crochet to finish the row with, and again we're going to have 154 stitches. I have completed row 8, and now we're going to start row 9 by chaining 2. Now what I want to explain, see how earlier I mentioned that in the beginning when we started the basket weave we only needed 1 row with the front posts and the back posts, but when we changed the direction of the stitches to create 2 back posts and then 2 front posts, we needed 2 rows. But if you see, the height of my stitches is exactly the same where I create the basket weaves. So this is not wrong, this is how we have to work the stitches. Okay, so let's start row 9. I have worked 2 chains and turn your work. Now because this is going to be a row of double crochet, the 2 chains do count as my first stitch. So I'm not going to start from the first one, I'm going to start crocheting from the second one and start counting 2, next stitch, 3, and keep working 1 double crochet in every stitch across, where the last stitch is going to fall on top of the half double crochet. Okay, and I'm going to have a total of 154 double crochet in the end of the row. I've completed row 9. Now we're going to start row number 10, where again we're going to work this outline over here. Okay, so we're going to work, all my stitches are going to be front posts now. So I'm going to start by chaining 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to turn my work. Starting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet. Now in the center, I'm going to have a total of 152 front post double crochet. So starting from the next stitch, I'm going to work 1 front post double crochet around it, 1 front post double crochet around the next stitch. So keep working all front post double crochet up until the second before the last stitch is going to be a front post. In the last stitch, in the chain 2, counting from the bottom to the top, put your hook in this second chain over here and work 1 half double crochet. So 1 half double crochet to start with, 152 front post double crochet in the center, and 1 half double crochet to end the row with. Again, we have a total of 154 stitches. I've completed row 10. Now we're going to start row 11, where we're going to start working the grind square. So I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, now the first 3 chains count as my first double crochet, because here we are going to have a gap in the beginning, so I do need the 3 chains for my double crochet. The 4th chain counts as a chain 1 space, so chain 4 and turn your work. And because we have the 3 chains that count as my first stitch, I'm going to start counting from the second one, and I'm going to skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, and I'm going to put my hook in the third one, and I'm going to work 2 double crochet in the same stitch. And if you count from the beginning, it's going to seem as if you skipped 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and that you worked in the 4. This is how it's going to look like in the beginning. Okay, now chain 1, skip 2 stitches, 1, 2, put your hook in the third and work 2 double crochet in the same stitch. Chain 1, skip 2 stitches, put your hook in the third and work 2 double crochet in the same stitch. And keep repeating those steps throughout. So chain 1 and work 2 double crochet in the third stitch, chain 1, 2 double crochet in the third stitch, up until the end of the row, where right over here you're going to have the last set of 2 double crochet. You're going to chain 1, you're going to skip 2 stitches, and in the third stitch, which is going to be the last stitch of the row right here on top of the half double crochet, you're going to work 1 double crochet to finish the row with. In the end of the row, you're going to have a total of 50 sets of 2 double crochet. I have completed row 11, and as I mentioned before I turned my video off, this is how the end of my row is going to look like. I have my last set of 2 double crochet, chain 1, skip 2 stitches as we have done throughout the row, and in the last stitch of the row I have my last double crochet. And you're going to have a total of 50 sets of 2 double crochet throughout row 11. Now we're going to start row 12, and row 12 and row 13 are going to be the 2 rows that you're going to be repeating throughout up until we finish working the granny square part of our cowl. Okay, so what we're going to do when we repeat row 12, we're going to chain 2, and I'm going to turn my work. Now those 2 chains do count as my first double crochet of the row. And the reason that I didn't work 3 as I did it down here is because I'm going to start crocheting from the first chain 1 space, and again I want to avoid my gap. So starting from the first chain 1 space, I'm going to work my first set of 2 double crochet. Chain 1 and work 1 double crochet, work a set of 2 double crochet in the next chain 1 space, 1 and 2, chain 1 and work 2 double crochet under the next chain 1 space. Okay, so keep repeating those steps, chain 1, 2 double crochet, chain 1, 2 double crochet under every chain 1 space. Now when you reach the end, under the big chain space over here, I'm going to work my last set of 2 double crochet under it, and then counting from the bottom to the top, count 3 chains, 1, 2, 3, and right in here I'm going to work the last double crochet of the row. So starting to count from the first set of 2 double crochet up until the last set that you're going to work in here, we're going to have a total of 51 sets of 2 double crochet. So this is how it's going to go: 50 sets, 51 sets, 50 sets, 51 sets, and so on. Okay, so once I finish row 12, I'm going to turn my video back on. I've completed row 12. Okay, I have a total of 51 sets of 2 double crochet. Now what I didn't mention before I turned my video off, and I want you to be aware of this, when I work the last 2 sets, the last set of 2 double crochet under the last chain space, when you work the last double crochet, we do not want to have a chain space between those stitches, okay? So work the 2 double crochet and right away work the last double crochet on the last stitch of the row, in the same exact way that we start the row with. So in this row you have a total of 51 sets of 2 double crochet. Now we're going to start row 13, which is going to be the second row repetitions for the granny square. So I'm going to chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. As we did down here, the first 3 chains are my double crochet, the 4th chain is my chain 1 space. And starting from the first chain space, work your first set of 2 double crochet. 1 and 2. Chain 1, 2 double crochet under the next chain space, 1 and 2, chain 1, 2 double crochet under the chain space, chain 1, 2 double crochet, and so on. Now once you finish in the end of the row, when you work your 2 double crochet under the last chain space, chain 1 and work 1 double crochet on top of the last stitch of the row, which is the second chain counting from the bottom to the top. And in this row again we're going to have a total of 50 sets of 2 double crochet as we did down here. I have completed working row number 13, and this is how my work looks like. See, after the last set of 2 double crochet in your last chain 1 space, chain 1 and double crochet on top of the last stitch of the row. Now I'm going to keep working the repetitions of row 12 and row 13 up until I complete the grind square part, and I'm going to need a total of 12 rows with the grind square. So far we have crocheted 3 rows, so keep repeating those 2 rows over here, and in the 12th row of your grind square part you're going to do the repetitions of row 12 of our project. Okay, so we need a total of 12 rows of the grind square. So far we have made 3. Okay, keep repeating those 2 rows where the 12th row of the grind square we need the repetitions of row 12 of our project, here the second row of the grind square that we worked. Once I complete working all 12 rows of my grind square, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue with our design, and we're going to work this part again to finish the cowl with. I have completed crocheting all 12 rows with the grind squares, and as I mentioned before, the last row of the grind square needs to be the same exact as the second row that we did over here, which is the 12th row of my project. Okay, now after finishing all 12 rows I have a total of 22 rows in my project. Okay, now we're going to start the 23rd one. So I'm going to start by chaining 2, and what we want to do now is we want to create this design on the top part of our cowl now. So I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn my work. Because I'm going to work double crochet, the 2 chains count as my first stitch. So I'm going to start crocheting from the second one, 2 on top of the next double crochet, 3 in the chain 1 space, 4. Okay, so keep crocheting 1 double crochet in every stitch across. So we always work 1 double crochet on top of the double crochet, 1 double crochet in the chain 1 space, and keep working up until the end where my last 2 stitches over here are going to be on top of the double crochet, and the last stitch of the row is going to be made in the second chain counting from the bottom to the top. Here I'm going to work the last double crochet, and I'm going to have a total of 154 stitches again. I have completed row 23 with a total of 154 stitches. Now row 24 and row 25 we're going to work off camera. What I'm going to do is I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn my work, and for row 24 I'm going to work 1 half double crochet in the first stitch, 152 front post double crochet, we're going to work only front posts, and the last stitch of the row in the second chain counting from the bottom to the top, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet to finish the row with. Okay, for row 25 I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to turn my work, and starting from the second stitch of the hook, from the second stitch of our pattern, we're going to work a total of 154 double crochet up until the end of the row. So what I'm doing is I'm going to create, by working all the front posts, I'm going to create this line over here, and then by working 1 double crochet in every stitch, I'm going to work the row after that, and then I'm going to turn my video back on to start together working the basket weave. I have completed rows 24 and 25. Now we're going to start row 26. So I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to start crocheting from the first stitch, and I'm going to work 1 half double crochet. And now we're going to work the basket weave. So we're going to have 2 front posts, 2 back posts, and so on. So my first 2 stitches are going to be 2 front posts. So 1 front post around the first one, one front post around the second one. The next 2 stitches are going to be 2 back posts. So 1 back post double crochet around the next stitch, 1 back post double crochet around the second stitch. Okay, so keep repeating 2 front post, 2 back post, 2 front post, 2 back post, where the last 2 stitches are going to be 2 back post double crochet, and in the last stitch of the row, in the second chain counting from the bottom to the top, I'm going to work the last half double crochet of my row. I have completed row 26, and now we're going to start row 27, where what I want to do is I want to change the direction of the stitches to create the basket weave. Okay, so I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn my work. I'm going to start with 1 half double crochet in the first stitch, and now the first 2 stitches are front posts. So what I want to do now is I want to make those front posts, I want to make them back post double crochet. So I'm going to work 1 back post double crochet around my first 2 stitches. 1, next stitch, 2. Now the next 2 stitches are back posts, so in this row I want to make them front posts. So 1 front post double crochet around the next stitch, 1 front post around the next one, and keep repeating those steps. 2 back post, 2 front post, 2 back post, 2 front post, where the last 2 stitches of your row are going to be 2 front posts, and then you're going to finish with 1 half double crochet of the row. Then I'm going to work the next row off camera as well, so I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to work the same exact steps as I did in this row that I just started. So I'm going to work 1 half double crochet in the first stitch of the row, and I'm going to keep the direction of the stitches. So I'm going to start with 2 back post, 2 front post, 2 back post, 2 front post. I'm going to finish with 2 front post double crochet and 1 half double crochet in the last stitch of the row. So once I finish those 2 rows, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to continue. I have completed rows 27 and 28. Now row 29, 30 and 31 we're going to work off camera. For row 29, I'm going to chain 2. I'm going to turn my work, and starting from the second stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch across for a total of 154 stitches. For row 30, I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to turn my work, I'm going to start crocheting from the first stitch, I'm going to work 1 half double crochet, then I'm going to work 152 front post double crochet, and I'm going to finish the row with 1 half double crochet in the last stitch. And for row 31, I'm going to chain 2, I'm going to turn my work, and again starting from the second stitch, I'm going to work 1 double crochet in every stitch across for a total of 154 stitches again. Once I finish those 3 rows, I'm going to turn my video back on. I have completed up to row 31 of camera. Now we're going to start row 32, which is the last stitch, the last row of our project. So I'm going to start by chaining 2. I'm going to turn my work, and I'm going to start crocheting from the very first stitch. I'm going to work 1 half double crochet, and now I want to create the ribbing that I created in the first rows of my project. So I want to work 1 front post, 1 back post, 1 front post, 1 back post. So around the next stitch, I'm going to work 1 front post double crochet, 1 back post double crochet around the next one, 1 front post double crochet around the next stitch, 1 back post around the next one. Okay, so keep working in the same pattern, 1 front post, 1 back post, where the last 2 stitches are going to be 1 front post, 1 back post, and in the very last stitch of your row, in the second chain counting from the bottom to the top, you're going to work your last stitch, which is going to be 1 half double crochet. Once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on, and we're going to see our big project now. I have completed crocheting my cowl so far, and this is how it looks like. Okay, This is the good side, from the bottom going to the top. Now what we're going to do is we're going to turn our work clockwise, and right here we're going to work a few rows of rib stitch, and this is going to give a nice finishing touch on our cowl, but it's also going to be the spot where we're going to attach our buttons. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to chain 2, 1, 2, and I'm going to turn clockwise to start crocheting right over here. So let me zoom in so it's easier for you to understand the steps that I'm doing. Okay, so now what I want you to do is we started with 2 chains. Now those 2 chains count as my first double crochet, and it's the same stitch as if I would crochet in here. Okay, so I have my 2 chains, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my hook in the next stitch, so we're crocheting in the first stitch of every row. So here I have the 2 chains, and under those 2 chains I'm going to work 2 double crochet, and the reason that I'm working 2 double crochet is in order to have even number of sets up until I finish this part over here. So I work 2 double crochet. Okay, now the next stitch under the half double crochet, work 1 half double crochet. Under the 2 chains, work 1 double crochet. Now under the half double crochet, work 1 double crochet. Under the 2 chains right over here, work 1 double crochet. Under the half double crochet, work 1 stitch. 1 stitch under the 2 chains, 1 stitch under the half double crochet, and 1 stitch under the 2 chains over here. So for this part I have the 2 chains that I started in the beginning where this is my first stitch. Okay, so 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I need to have a total of 11 stitches on this part over here of my cowl, where I worked all the front post and back posts, the basket weave and everything to give the texture on my cowl. Now going to the center of our project, right over here where we worked the granny square, under every double crochet I'm going to be working 2 stitches now. And this because we have mentioned in other projects as well, when you work a double crochet and you want to work horizontally on top of that stitch, we need 2 stitches to cover the distance. Okay, so put your hook under the first double crochet and work 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Now under the chains, work 2 double crochet, 1 and 2. Under the double crochet again, work 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Okay, so 2 under the next stitch, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 here. Okay, so far for the centerpiece, for the granny square, we have worked 6 double crochet. So 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, up until the last chain for the granny square. So I have 24 stitches plus 11 for the top part, 35, plus 11 double crochet that I'm going to come out with this piece. I'm going to have a total of 46 double crochet. So I'm going to have a total of 46 double crochet, and after you work the last 2 stitches here for the granny square, again when you come down to this part, you're going to work 1 double crochet under the half double crochet, 1 stitch under the chain 2, 1 stitch under the half double crochet, 1 stitch under the chain 2, and once I crochet under the last half double crochet over here, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how to finish the row in order to have the 11 double crochet for this part of the textured for our cowl. Okay, so once I finish, I'm going to turn my video back on. I'm almost done crocheting, going downwards. Okay, and so far after the stitches with the grand square, I have a total of 9 double crochet. Now I need my last 2, and the 9th stitch has fallen under the stitch where is a half double crochet over here. Okay, now my last 2 stitches are going to be made under those chains, so the 10th stitch is going to be made under the chain space, and the 11th stitch is going to be made in this last chain right over here. Just put your hook in it and work your last double crochet. And this was my first row, and this is how your work looks like at this point. Okay, now I'm going to chain 2 and I'm going to turn my work. So I'm going to work a 2-2 ribbing, which means 2 front posts, 2 back posts. And every time that I work front posts and back posts, no matter if it's a basket weave, if it's the ribbing, the first and last stitches need to be 1 half double crochet. So I'm going to work 1 half double crochet in the first stitch, and now I'm going to work 2 front post double crochet, 2 back posts, and I'm not going to go step by step because we have already seen how to work the front posts and the back posts. Okay, so the first double crochet right over here is going to be a front post double crochet, 1 front post around the next stitch, the next 2 stitches are going to be back post double crochet, so 1 back post double crochet around the next stitch, 1 back post around the next one. Okay, so this is what I have so far: 2 front post, 2 back post. So now I'm going to go and work now 2 front post again, so 1 front post around the next stitch, 1 front post around the next one, now 1 back post around the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Okay, so keep working 2 front post, 2 back post up until the end, where the last 2 stitches are either going to be 2 front posts or 2 back posts. And in the last stitch of my row, which is the chain 2 that I started the previous row, right here in the peak, up here in the second chain counting from the bottom to the top, I'm going to work my last half double crochet. I have completed the second row for my rib stitch, and the last 2 stitches were 2 back post double crochet, and my last stitch was 1 half double crochet. Now, because we all have the same stitches, you should all have 2 back post double crochet on your last 2 stitches. Now, in the way that I'm going to start row 3, we're going to start all the rest of the rows. Okay, so I'm going to start row 3 and then we're going to work off camera the rest of the rows, which are not going to be more than 1 or 2 rows after this one. So I'm always going to be chaining 2 to begin with, and I'm going to turn my work. Now, starting from the first stitch, I always want to crochet 1 half double crochet. Okay, now my first 2 stitches are 2 front post double crochet, so I want to keep the same direction, so I'm going to work 2 front post double crochet. Even though when I finished the row they were back posts, when you turn your work, the stitches change their direction, okay? And I want to keep the same. So since the 2 first stitches seem to be 2 front posts, I want to keep working front post double crochet. So 1 front post around the first one and 1 front post around the second one. Now my next 2 stitches are back post double crochet, and because they're not that visible, I always use my fingers to open up the stitches. So 1 back post around the first one, 1 back post around the second one. So keep working to front post to back post to front post to back post up until the end, where the last 2 stitches, as they were on the previous row that we just finished, they're going to be 2 back post, 1 half double crochet in the last stitch, and when you turn your work again, the first stitch is going to be 1 half double crochet and 2 front post around the first 2 stitches, 2 back post around the next 2, and so on. So once I finish working my ribbing, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how we're going to attach the buttons. I have completed crocheting my rib stitch, and even though I said that I'm going to crochet like 2 or 3 rows, every row that I was adding, it was giving me a nice and unique result for my ribbing for my cowl. Now, I have worked a total of 7 rows, counting from the first row that we worked the double crochet, okay, a total of 7 rows. And in order to finish, I'm going to chain 1, cut the yarn, and fasten off. Now, off camera, what I also did is I counted and measured my stitches on where to attach my buttons. What I want you to do is I want you to have on the front over here the good side of your cowl, and on top of that good side we're gonna fold the side that we just worked with the ribbed stitch. Okay, now hold the one corner with the bottom corner and open up the stitches, and this is how it looks like. Okay, now what I did is I placed my buttons right over here, and the first button I placed it on the first set of back post double crochet right over here. The second button I attached it on the last row of the back post, okay, on the last set of back post, so here and here. And then what I did, with the help of my needle, I placed it down here and I opened up to see where the needle was at, and I am attaching my buttons counting from the beginning on the 6th stitch, and after the 6th stitch counting from 1, I attach the second stitch marker on the 38th stitch. Okay, so start counting from 1 over here to 38, I attached my second stitch marker, and on the 6th stitch marker I have my first on this 6th stitch I have my first stitch marker. And this is where I'm going to attach my first button. Then I'm going to attach my second button. Okay, and what I didn't do in my work, I did not do buttonholes for the buttons, and this is because in other projects that I've made buttonholes, they tend to get loose, and I really don't like that. So what I'm going to do is, I know where I want the button to go through, and I want it to go through right here on the first row of the back post. So when I sew it on, I'm going to take it through here, and the button goes pretty easy through the stitches. See, even though it is a very, very big button. Okay, and even if your button is bigger and it goes through the stitches harder, this cowl is kind of loose on the top. It's not very tight, okay? So you can actually wear it and take it out without unbuttoning the buttons. So what I'm going to do now off camera, I'm going to attach my buttons on my cowl. Okay, and what I usually do to sew my buttons on is I take the yarn that I've crocheted, the same yarn that I crocheted my cowl. Of course, I'm going to take out the stitch marker, and I'm going to sew from the back to the front. Okay, and I'm going to put my needle in the other hole over here, and I'm going to sew, and maybe I'm going to go one more time just to make sure that my stitches are safe and my button doesn't come loose. Once I do that, I'm going to tie a knot back here, and I'm going to weave in the ends on the back loops of the double crochet right over here. Okay, just make sure that you're attaching your buttons on the good side. You want to see those outlines with the front posts that we're working throughout the rows. Okay, so once I finish attaching my buttons and weaving in all of my ends, I'm going to turn my video back on to see how our cowl looks completed. So I've completed it, weaving in all of my ends, and this is how our cowl looks like. Okay, thanks for watching, please subscribe, and if you like the video, please press like and leave a comment. Thanks again, bye bye.